The tow truck's cable tightened on my work trailer as the HOA president snapped a padlock onto the only gate out. Community safety, she said, waving a board vote like a badge. The deputy hesitated until she slid him a stamped packet and murmured, "Lien paperwork's already filed." My stomach dropped. I hit record and leaned in. The header read, "Emergency Access Control Order." Attached was a survey map, fresh ink red lines, claiming the shared easement now cuts straight through my driveway. Then I saw the notarized signature at the bottom. It was my name. She didn't introduce herself with a smile. She introduced herself by ordering the gate re-locked while I was still standing there. "Resecure it," she told the maintenance guy, not looking at me, already acting like the road was hers. Then she turned blazer sharp enough to cut glass. "I'm Marlene Kessick, HOA president, not a handshake, a directive." She flipped open a folder and tapped the page with one manicured finger. "Temporary control of this access route is necessary for community safety. One sentence, one motive, property values." She said it once, like it was scripture, and expected that to end the conversation. I told her this road predated the HOA. She didn't argue. She smiled, the kind that says rules only matter when they're hers. Previous owners cooperated, she said, and motioned for photos to be taken of my truck, my tools, my plates, control through documentation. Classic. Behind her, 2 board members hovered silent and obedient. She used them like props, invoking the board without naming a single vote. When I asked who authorized the lock, she leaned closer. I did. The bylaws give me discretion during emergencies. Emergency apparently meant me needing to get to work. She slid a notice onto my hood. Daily fines, $150 a day, a cruise to a Lien, calm voice, practice delivery, then the line that mattered, "You can appeal after compliance." She walked away before I could answer, already certain the system would finish the job for her. By the next morning, the lock was still there, and so was the problem. My crew showed up at 7, coffee steaming in the cold air, only to find the gate chained shut with a bright orange warning tag flapping like a dare. I called the HOA office, straight to voicemail. I emailed. Auto reply office closed for inspection day. Funny timing. An hour later, a laminated notice appeared on the fence. Unauthorized commercial use. Apparently my work truck now counted as a nuisance vehicle. I took photos, time-stamped. When I stepped back, a woman across the road lowered her blinds, like she'd been caught watching a crime in progress. Around noon, a maintenance cart rolled up. Same guy from yesterday. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I was told to document, he muttered, snapping pictures of my trailer through the fence. I asked who told him. He shrugged. The president. I walked the long way around 2 miles of rutted dirt to reach the back of my property. By the time I got there, my phone buzzed. Notice of violation #2 obstruction of common access by non-compliant owner behavior. That was new, creative even. The harassment stayed small but constant. A warning sticker on my mailbox, a chalk mark on my tire. A neighbor whispered, "She did this to the Reyes family last year," then hurried off before I could ask more. That night, another email landed. Polite tone, legal font. Daily fines begin at midnight. What bothered me wasn't the money yet. It was the confidence. She wasn't bluffing, she was warming up. The system didn't knock. It arrived by certified mail. 2 envelopes, same afternoon. Heavy paper. Official seals. Inside inspection notices. Scheduled back-to-back fire access review, road compliance audit, temporary safety assessment. All requested by the HOA board. Signed by Marlene Kessick as authorized representative. No vote attached, no minutes. Just authority assumed and mailed. The first inspector showed up the next morning with a clipboard and an apologetic shrug. "I'm just here because the HOA flagged an emergency." He said, "Already taking photos of the gate, the road, my equipment." He measured, wrote, nodded. No violations found, but the report still went into the system. By lunch, an HOA email blast hit the neighborhood. Subject line, community safety update. It warned residents of ongoing compliance issues tied to one non-cooperative owner. No name, no details, just enough fear to prime the room. That evening, a board notice appeared on the HOA website. Emergency executive action approved, no agenda, no member vote, just a paragraph granting the president temporary discretion to manage shared infrastructure. I checked the bylaws twice. That clause didn't exist. I replied formally, requested records, asked for the vote count. Cited the section requiring member approval for fines exceeding 7 days. The response came fast and colder than before. Your inquiry has been received. Enforcement will continue uninterrupted. The next letter raised the stakes. $150 per day, accruing. Lien eligible after 30 days. Appeal rights, available after compliance. That was the shift. This wasn't Marlene being petty anymore. This was paper moving through systems inspectors, databases, automated penalties. The kind that buries you quietly while everyone claims they're just following procedure. And buried in the footer, almost invisible, was a line that shouldn't have been there at all revised access boundaries, pending updated survey. The survey line bothered me enough that I drove to the county records office before sunrise. By noon I knew why. The updated survey the HOA referenced didn't just adjust measurements, it quietly rerouted the easement. The access road I'd used for years is redrawn to favor a parcel downhill one I didn't recognize. Fresh filing date, same surveyor name stamped twice. That parcel led to answers. A quick title search showed an option agreement recorded 3 weeks earlier, contingent, undisclosed, and very expensive. A developer had secured rights, pending guaranteed access. Guaranteed by whom wasn't stated. It didn't have to be. I felt it then, the cold stomach-tightening click of the real stakes. This wasn't about safety. It wasn't about rules. My access road was leverage. I called the surveyor listed. He sounded nervous. We were instructed to use HOA-provided boundary assumptions, he said carefully. When I asked who gave them, he paused. The president's office. That's when the costs finally landed. The fines were climbing. The lawyer I consulted, $380 an hour, confirmed what I already feared. If a lien hit refinancing or selling, would freeze instantly. Even if I won later, the damage would be done. That was the play. Pressure, not proof. One emotion hit hard and clean fear. Not panic calculation. The kind you feel when you realize someone is trying to corner you using systems designed to look neutral. I sat in my truck, staring at the red-lined map hands, still breathing slow, thinking about how easily this could have worked on someone without time or money. Then the last piece surfaced. A board member emailed me anonymously that night. One line, she promised the road would be handled before escrow. Escrow. Everything snapped into focus. The inspections, the silence, the fake emergency powers, the rewritten easement. This wasn't harassment spiraling out of control. It was a plan. And if I didn't stop it now, the next notice wouldn't be a fine. It would be a sale I never agreed to, and a road I'd legally lose without ever stepping into court. I stopped guessing and forced the system to look back at itself. The county clerk was first. I filed a records challenge on the revised survey, citing a conflict with the original easement description on file. She didn't argue. She frowned. Pulled the older map, then another. These don't reconcile, she said, tapping the screen. Boundary changes like this require owner consent. She paused. Which you didn't give. That same afternoon, a licensed surveyor I hired walked the road with me GPS unit chirping softly every few steps. He didn't take long. Your easement was never abandoned, he said, and it definitely wasn't moved. Someone tried to redraw it without authority. He marked the true line with orange flags straight through the area the HOA now claimed as haired. My attorney sent a notice that evening, formal, precise. It demanded proof of board approval disclosure, of communications with any developer, and an immediate halt to fines tied to the disputed survey. The clock started the moment it was delivered. $380 an hour and worth every minute. Then code enforcement showed up, not because the HOA asked, but because conflicting filings triggered a review. The officer compared documents, shook his head, and said the words Marlene had worked so hard to avoid. This falls outside HOA jurisdiction. The deputy I'd seen hovering earlier pulled me aside. You're not the first, he said quietly. But this is the first time the paperwork doesn't line up. By sunset, 3 things were officially on record. The lien process was flagged, the survey was under investigation, and the HOA's authority over the road was suspended pending review. Not reversed. Suspended. A crack, not a collapse. My phone buzzed once more before dark. An email from the HOA, shorter than usual. All enforcement actions remain in effect until further notice. They were pretending nothing had changed, but it had. The system had looked closely, and now it couldn't unsee the fingerprints. The point of no return came with one envelope, and one mistake she couldn't undo. It wasn't certified this time. No letterhead, just a plain manila packet slid under my gate, like a threat that didn't want a signature. Inside were copies of demand letters already sent to banks, to the county assessor, to a title company I'd never contacted. Each claimed an active lien was imminent due to unpaid HOA fines. Each referenced the same fabricated survey. Each bore Marlene's authorization. She'd jumped ahead of the process. She'd gone public with a lie. I forwarded everything to my attorney. His reply was instant. She'd just exposed herself. Filing lien notices without a recorded lien wasn't pressure, it was fraud. Worse, it pulled third parties into a dispute built on false authority. Then the whistleblower stepped out of the shadows. A board member I'd never spoken to called after dark voice, low and rushed. "She's panicking," he said. "She promised the developer clean access before the end of the month. She told us tonight that if this vote fails, the deal dies." He swallowed. "We never approved any deal." He emailed me the agenda for an emergency HOA meeting scheduled for 48 hours later. Not posted publicly, not noticed properly. One item highlighted in bold: vote to assume temporary control of access infrastructure. Temporary. Again. Attached were internal emails. Marlene directing staff to push enforcement through, instructing the treasurer to advance legal fees without disclosure. Promising access she didn't own. Every line tightened the noose. I sent one message to every homeowner on the roster. Short, factual, calm. I attached the county suspension notice, the flagged survey, and the lien demand letters bearing Marlene's signature. I ended with a single sentence: if this vote passes, every homeowner may inherit the liability. By morning, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Neighbors asking questions, board members resigning by email, a developer's representative requesting clarification, and one final message from Marlene herself: "You're making this very public. You don't understand the consequences." She was right about one thing. It was public now. And in 48 hours, she planned to force a vote she legally couldn't win on a record she could never erase. The community center was already buzzing when I walked in, folding chairs packed tight, voices sharp with confusion and anger. A local news camera hovered near the back, red light on. Marlene stood at the front table, flanked by two remaining board members, her posture rigid, jaw set. She opened the meeting without waiting for quiet. "This emergency session is now in order," she said, gavel snapping down. "We're here to protect the community from ongoing risk." I raised my hand. She ignored it. She launched straight into a motion to assume temporary control of the access road. No discussion, no disclosures, just urgency. "Delay will endanger property values," she said, eyes sweeping the room, daring anyone to slow her down. That's when a man in a county badge stepped forward from the aisle. Before any vote, he said calmly, "The county needs to address an active jurisdictional issue." Marlene stiffened. "This is an internal HOA matter." "It isn't," he replied, holding up a folder. "Your enforcement authority over that road is currently suspended." The room went silent. Even the camera stopped drifting. Marlene smiled tightly and leaned into the microphone. "Suspended or not, the board retains emergency discretion." I stood. "Then let's talk about how you used it." Every head turned, and for the first time all night, Marlene looked like she hadn't planned the next move. Tommy stepped beside me and set a single binder on the table. No theatrics, no speeches. He opened it once and turned it so everyone could see. "These are the documents, miss. Keswick relied on to claim emergency authority," he said. "They're false. First the survey, 2 versions side by side. The county stamped original, and the revised map the HOA circulated. Red lines didn't match. Parcel numbers shifted. The county official leaned in and nodded, quietly final. Second, the lien notices, not filed, not recorded, just letters sent to banks and title companies, claiming they were. A murmur rippled through the room as homeowners realized what that meant. Third, emails. Marlene's words on a projector screen. "Access must be secured before escrow. Push enforcement delay kills the deal." No names spoken. None needed. Tommy closed the binder. There was never an emergency. There was a transaction. The county official spoke again. For clarity, these actions expose the HOA and individual signatories to personal liability. The camera zoomed. Someone in the front row whispered, "She used our dues." Marlene reached for the microphone, then stopped. Her hands hovered, trembling as the room shifted. Not loud, not angry, yet just alert. That was the sound of a story collapsing under its own weight. Marlene finally grabbed the microphone, but the authority was gone. "This is being taken out of context," she said, voice tight. "Those emails were preliminary, advisory." She looked to the board. One chair was empty. Another board member stared at the table, pale. A homeowner stood. "Did you promise a developer access to that road?" Marlene snapped. "Sit down." "This isn't it," is the county official cut in. "Answer the question." She tried again, louder this time. "Everything I did was for the community." That's when the treasurer spoke, shaking. "You ordered me to advance legal fees without a vote." Gasps followed. Someone laughed sharp and disbelieving. The county official didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Based on what's been presented, the county is formally referring this matter for investigation of fiduciary breach and fraudulent lien activity." A uniformed deputy stepped forward. "Not dramatic, just inevitable. Miss Kessick, we're going to need you to step away from the table." Her composure shattered. "You can't do this. I'm the president, not anymore." The gavel sat untouched as she was escorted past the camera, face-flushed eyes darting. Phones rose. The room didn't cheer. It watched. The county official addressed the crowd. "All enforcement actions tied to this matter are void pending review." I exhaled for the first time in weeks. Behind me, someone whispered, "She almost got away with it." Almost. No one rushed the door when it was over. People stayed in their seats, like the room itself needed a second to reset. Then the sound came back in layers. Quiet conversations. Stunned laughter. A few sharp breaths, finally released. A woman near the aisle wiped her eyes and said, "I thought it was just me." Someone else answered, "She did the same thing to us." Heads nodded. Stories surfaced short and raw, trading fear for relief. A neighbor I barely knew stepped over and shook my hand, gripping hard. "Thank you for not backing down." Another apologized for staying silent before. Not defensively, honestly. The kind that lands. The atmosphere felt lighter, like pressure dropping after a storm. People stood without bracing. No one was whispering anymore. Even the board table looked smaller, now stripped of its authority. The county official remained at the front, calmly answering questions while the deputy finished paperwork. Phones buzzed as messages spread outside the room. Word was moving faster than fear ever did. I leaned back against the wall and listened to the hum of a community finding its voice again, realizing all at once that the rules only worked because they believed they had no choice. The county official put his phone on speaker at the front table volume, high enough for the room. For the record, a calm voice said, "All liens fines and enforcement actions initiated under the disputed authority are suspended and subject to reversal." A ripple moved through the crowd. The official continued reading directly from an emailed PDF just received. The emergency vote was invalid. Any easement changes were void, and the HOA was ordered to cease enforcement beyond its lawful scope immediately. Then came the part everyone leaned in for. The treasurer voice, unsteady, read a second notice aloud, this one from HOA council sent minutes earlier. The board was required to reimburse improperly assessed fines, disclose all legal expenditures, and convene a member-supervised election within 30 days. Any future lien over $500 would now require a recorded vote of 75% of homeowners with independent review attached. No discretion, no shortcuts. Someone near the back whispered, "So she can't do this again." The county official nodded. "Not here. Not like this." It wasn't a speech. It wasn't a victory lap. It was procedure snapping back into place, slow, firm, undeniable. The kind of change that doesn't feel dramatic in the moment, but quietly redraws the boundary between power and abuse for everyone in the room. Someone outside pulled the chain from the gate. You could hear it through the opened doors, the metallic scrape, then the soft thunk as it hit the pavement. A few people turned their heads instinctively, like they needed proof the night had actually changed. A maintenance worker stepped in, unsure where to stand. "County said to remove it," he offered. No one stopped him. The county official nodded once. "Access is restored." That did it. Not applause exhales. Shoulders dropping. A man near the front laughed under his breath and said, "I forgot what normal feels like." The treasurer slid the gavel across the table away from Marlene's empty chair and left it there like a relic no one wanted to touch. I walked to the doorway and looked down the road, my road clear for the first time in weeks. Same cracked asphalt, same dust, but it felt different, honest, uncontested. Behind me, neighbors were already trading plans, audits, open meetings, a real election. Nothing flashy, just guardrails where there hadn't been any before. As I stepped outside, my phone buzzed once more. A bank alert. Lien notice, withdrawn. I stood there a moment longer than necessary, hand resting on the open gate, realizing something simple and rare had happened. Power hadn't changed hands. It had been put back where it belonged.
Looking back, the win wasn't what mattered most. What stayed with me was how close everything came to going the other way. If I'd reacted out of anger, raised my voice shoved back, tried to win the moment, I wouldn't be standing here now. The outcome changed because I slowed down and let the process do the heavy lifting. Paperwork beat posturing. Patience beat pride. The law, not my temper, shifted the balance. There's a line people cross when pressure builds. On one side is standing your ground, legally documenting, questioning, insisting on transparency. On the other is escalation that feels satisfying in the moment, but leaves damage behind. I felt that pull more than once, but every time I stepped back and focused on evidence instead of emotion, things got clearer. Rage clouds judgment. Process sharpens it. That difference decided everything. For anyone watching who's dealing with something similar, the quiet work matters more than the loud moments. Save the emails. Photograph notices before they disappear. Read what's already public before assuming someone else controls the narrative. When the situation grows beyond neighbor-level friction, that's when outside eyes help people whose job it is to be neutral. Not to fight for you, but to verify facts. You don't need to rush. You need to be accurate. What I learned is that communities don't break because of conflict. They break because conflict goes unchecked or gets handled the wrong way. Power fills gaps when no one asks questions. It shrinks the moment someone does calmly, consistently on the record. The road at the center of all this looks the same now. Same cracks, same dust. But it feels different because it's quiet again. Not because someone lost, but because boundaries were respected. That's what holds a place together. Not fear, not force, just people willing to slow down, follow the law, and let it speak louder than they ever could.